Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to make a fun mixed media face in my sketchbook, and I'm actually using the Grumbacher acrylic paper, which is really great. I've only used one sheet of it before. I bought it on sale last year, and it's just really fantastic. Oddly enough, I don't like their watercolor paper, but I really enjoyed their acrylic paper, and it does work well for watercolors too, in case you're looking for something that's really robust for mixed media, and it does not warp at all, which is really fantastic. I believe it's just a cellulose paper, so you know, it's nothing like really high-end or anything. It just really performs well. I'm going to be using products from the Davenport Making Faces collection. She had sent me a box of stuff from the new Spellbinders collection that she did with Michael's stores. I think that's the only place you can get some of these things. And a lot of people had told me they purchased the stencils, so I thought, well, it'll be kind of fun to use those. Although I was intending to draw freehand at first, but then I figured so many people told me they bought the stencils, I figured that I would use the stencils and just kind of show how you can use them to create a completely different looking face. So you can see, like, stenciling here, I've got a very kind of pleasant looking face, and I'm gonna show you how you can just kind of lay out your features like that and then kind of go your own way with it. Of course, sketch freehand if you prefer, but it is a nice just way to get started if you need a little bit of just a little bit of guidance. And I think that's what I really like about this collection, is that it gives you a little bit of kind of a helping hand along the way if you kind of don't know where to begin with mixed media. As we go through, I'm going to talk about the different supplies that I'm using. I don't intend to do a full review on this line because there's so many parts and pieces, but if you have questions on any of these products, go ahead and leave them in the comments below, and I will answer them if I can. So the neat thing about this line of product is that it's based on makeup. So your acrylic paint here that I'm using is kind of almost like foundation. So I'm starting, I squirted up some of the medium tone. You've got like a big bottle of this kind of medium kind of peach color. Then you've got a smaller bottle of a dark brown, and you've got a smaller bottle of a really light pinky peach color. And so you can mix those colors to get kind of a base tone. Now, I think you could just mix up one color, paint it in, and then do all your shading with the pastels that are in the collection. But I tried to get some of the shading done with the paints so that I could kind of build up the values and tones, because that's how I like to work. Now, keep in mind, I don't work with acrylics that often, so I'm sure there's probably better ways to go about this, but I'm just kind of playing. Now, I loved how I just got that little bit of hair done with the stencil, and I decided to throw a braid over her shoulder, which I'm pretty sure I totally ripped off from Jane Davenport, because she has in her book, she's got a very similar hairstyle in one of her girls, and it's very, very pretty. I am using some of the velvet pastels for this, just kind of spreading it around and just kind of blocking everything in. Now, I wanted to change the shape of the nose a little bit, so it's kind of slightly upturned, so I did alter that a little bit, and I also wanted to make the mouth a little bit wider. I'm also going to give her bushier eyebrows, and I wanted her to have kind of like a fierce look on her face. I had the kind of idea to create kind of like a warrior looking woman, and so using the stencil as a guideline to place everything, I decided to just alter stuff as I went to get the face that I was looking for. So if you want to use a stencils to get yourself started, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with tracing to get yourself started. So don't feel like you have to follow anybody's rules but your own when you're creating art in your sketchbook. My favorite product by far in this collection are these sticks of color. I think they're called ColorSticks, but I'm not 100% sure. They're kind of like a really waxy water-soluble crayon, kind of like a gelato, but they're very inexpensive, especially compared to some of the other products in this collection. A set of 12 is like $13 or $14, right around there, and there's quite a bit of pigment in each of the sticks. The thing that I really like about it is that they blend with water really well. I think they'd be really nice on embossed cardstock if you're a paper crafter, and you can mix them with other things. I'm using a stiff brush to spread around the color. This is from the magnetic holder brush set from the new Making Faces collection. These brushes are quite stiff, so they would be best for diluting like a dry media like this, or a watercolor crayon, or something where you need a little extra push to it. and I just kind of layered up color until I was happy with the tooth being filled from the paper. The neat thing about these color sticks is that once you've kind of smudged them in, they're not greasy anymore, and they seem to dry down, kind of like a distress crayon, but for whatever reason, I seem to have an easier time blending these. They remind me an awful lot of the gelatos. They're less expensive than the gelatos. They're actually priced about the same as the Faber-Castell gel sticks that were designed for kids. To soften the background, I grabbed a kind of the beauty blender that came in the collection and used some white gouache to dab on some of the gouache for some clouds and also blend it in with the color below. This worked so well, and I'm definitely going to be using these beauty blenders in my artwork in the future. Now, funny story, one of my daughters saw that I had gotten this collection, and they saw the beauty blenders, and they took one. My daughter Maisie took one right away. She's like, "Can I please have one? I need a beauty blender." I'm like, "Well, I guess it's all right because it's, just foam. It's not an art supply. Well, it's an art supply, but it's not like an art media." And in the past, I had bought some just cheapy beauty blenders thinking I would use them with my pan pastels, and those got confiscated by my daughters. So if you do get these, just be aware that if you have teenage daughters, they are probably going to try to knife your beautiful beauty blenders. The neat thing about these is they have different firmnesses and shapes to them. That really steep pink one is great for like stenciling or really pushing pigment around, and the other ones are softer and better for smooth blending. So I really like those. I definitely could see having another set of those very useful. I did wash them out when I was done, and I was careful not to use acrylics with the beauty blenders because I was afraid that I would forget to wash them and ruin them. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you use it for the like the pastels and the color sticks, then you'll have no problem washing them out. They'll probably stain. Mine stained a little bit, but that doesn't bother me because I know they're clean. So I went in again with some of the gouache and added some highlights. Gouache is a little bit easier for me than acrylic because I can soften them out later, even after it dries, where that acrylic paint, the foundation set where you can blend whatever color you want, that dries so quick and it's really matte. So you have to either work really quickly or just paint everything a solid color and then go back in and shade with your pastels, which is probably the easier way to do it and the quicker way to do it, but it's old habits die hard, I guess. I wanted my fierce warrior elf lady to have a off-the-shoulder ruffly blouse, because you want to look good when you're out being a fierce warrior elf. And so I just kind of blocked that in with some of the color sticks and some of the velvet pastels, and then with my dirty brush I just kind of threw some shadow colors onto the face because violet is really nice for shadows. I wanted something more substantial for the hair, so I grabbed some gray paint. This is a Cool Gray by Arteza. I just keep a small set of their 24 set of acrylics on the shelf next to my desk so I can just grab them if I need them. And I blocked that in. At first I wasn't crazy about the look, but I knew I wanted kind of like a silvery lavender hair, and I knew this base color would work pretty well for that. Boy, she's looking awfully angry right now, but I'm convinced I will be able to make sure she has that fierce look, but also just this defiant beauty that I'm going for. Does that make sense? I'm going in and adding some of the values to the hair, getting some of the shadows in the dips of the braid and also kind of behind the neck where you would have just a natural darkening as it's around the face and you have deeper layers of hair. I think that's probably an issue that people get into with hair, is that they don't have all the dimensions and highlights that you normally have. I also just grabbed some of that white gouache and added that in for a highlight. Because these are all water-based products, I can mix them up together. So of course the gouache would be less blendable when it's mixed in with acrylics, but they'll all work pretty well. I also grabbed some violet acrylic paint from that same Arteza set and went ahead over with the on the ruffle top and used some gouache to add some highlights. Worked really well. It blended really well with the color stick that I had underneath, and I was really happy with how everything layered really well, and nothing had like a greasy or shiny film to it. I was kind of worried that I might get some oily film with some of these products, but everything layered. I was even able to layer these pastels, which look like eyeshadows on top of things, which worked out really well. I used the pastels and the beauty blender to kind of smooth everything out and just kind of tone everything down a little bit, because I had a lot of contrast in the face, which was really more than I wanted. You typically don't want that much contrast in the face. So my recommendation would probably be trying, and I'll do this too at some point, try just mixing up a flat color for the skin tone, painting it all that, and then going in and layering on the layers. One thing I was really pleased with was that with the pastels, I can still see some of the layer underneath. They're not completely opaque, and I was also able to layer over them later, so they really gripped into that matte acrylic that the foundation paint was made from. If you had an acrylic paint, kind of like the Arteza, how it's like glossier, it would have a hard time adhering to those pastels. But here you can see I did the acrylic paint, I was able to do pastels, and I was able to do ColorSticks over it and keep working and building up until I had just the right amount of highlight and shadow and coverage and color that I wanted. So honestly, it reminded me an awful lot like putting on makeup. So I think that if that's something you're comfortable with, but you've been uncomfortable about creating, it might be a really nice collection to give a look at, or at least, you know, pick up a few things from. Like I mentioned, my favorite product was a ColorSticks. I also really liked I did like the acrylic paint because it is so matte and easy to work with. And I also really like the Dramasticks, and you'll see those in a little bit. I like that the ColorSticks are water soluble. I can go on the edge of them and get a fine line like I did on the lip. I can spread it out with a brush like I am here, and kind of tinting and staining certain areas. I just found them to be very easy to work with, and plus I just like looking at them in their little package because they're so cute. Because, you know, that's one thing Jane Davenport really does well, is the packaging. She makes everything looks so gorgeous and inspiring, and you just want to play. I decided at this point she was going to be an elf. I didn't know at the beginning, and so I just added a little bit of that highlight color to where the tips of her ears would be, and then I'll spread it out later with a brush. The tips on the acrylic paint bottles are super fine, almost like the tip that's on like a fabric paint bottle where you can almost write with it. I hope that that doesn't become a problem, like it doesn't clog up. It probably won't. I mean, I've got fabric paint that I've had for years and it hasn't clogged up. So hopefully that stays really, really nice. I always think of like glue. I'm really bad with wet glue. It always globs up on me, but I think this is going to be fine because it reminds me a lot of a fabric paint type of bottle. And I'm sure it's meant to look like foundation, like makeup, you know, for the whimsy and the fun aspect of it. But as far as using it, it was very easy to use. And I'm not a big fan of acrylics because I always find that I am struggling with it. So I put some highlights on the dress using the Velvet Pastels, which I believe are an acrylic based paint. They're super, super matte, and they are in a container that looks like a lip gloss. They're a bit on the pricey side at $7.99 a piece. So, you know, that's something to consider. Some of these products are steals. Some are a little bit more expensive. If you buy them at Michael's, you can use a 50% off coupon on them. So, you know, just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking. You can certainly substitute it for other matte acrylics that you have. And I actually feel like with that spongy applicator, it's more better for just little touches than to actually cover a large area. So I don't think you'd use a lot of it. I think it would last you quite a long time, but you know, then you get that packaging aspect, which I try to find stuff with less packaging. So that would probably be my biggest critique of that product, would just be, I mean, the packaging's adorable, but it is a lot of packaging. So here I'm going in with just a regular acrylic paintbrush. I believe it's the Zen by Royal and Langnickel, and filling in the eyebrows because I knew I just wanted a fuller eyebrow on this lady. And I'm also just kind of blocking in the eyes and eyelashes and iris and pupil and iris and all that jazz, because sometimes when you just have this blank eyeball face staring at you, it can be a little disconcerting. Oh, and I wanted to mention that I spent probably not quite 2 hours on this piece playing around with the different mediums, but I just wanted to give you a frame of reference in case you're sitting down and you're like, hey, how come I can't do this in 23 minutes? What's up? It takes longer. This is sped up, obviously. But I'm really liking how the face is coming out and how she looks fierce but not angry, and I'm able to refine things a little bit better. I really recommend having a good set of paintbrushes so that you can manipulate these products. And by the way, the surface I'm working on is the Splat Matte from her Jane Davenport's original collection, the the one that she did with American Crafts. And I've got a really great tip for cleaning up this mess, because you're probably thinking, I can't believe you squirted all that stuff on that beautiful mat. Well, it's meant to get messy, guys, so don't fret. It will be fine. And you can see I'm dipping into the white gouache again for little highlights and what have you. So at this point, what you really can't see, because I'm doing this off camera, is me getting these Dramasticks, which are kind of like eyeliners and lip liners, out of their packaging because they're really difficult to move. I can see why they put them in packaging like that, because they're so, the cores of these pencils are so soft that you wouldn't want them to get banged around in shipment. So I think that's great. But once you get them home, unless you're traveling with them a lot, I highly recommend that you take them out of the plastic, you know, death grip packaging, because it's just going to be a pain every time you have to get them out. And then you can fit a lot more in your containers. You can fit everything in one plus more stuff, and then you have an extra container. Here I'm just playing with the metallic pastels and the beauty blender because it's fun, and I wanted to add a little bit of shimmer. When I was all done with all the layering I did, I think I covered up all the shimmer, but it was still awfully fun to play with it. And let's see, I like the lavender kind of reflections I've got on the chin and the neck, kind of reflecting from the sky and the shirt. So you want to kind of keep in mind, even if you're making stuff up from your imagination, the setting that your character's in, that you get some of those colors kind of cross-pollinating, so it doesn't look like everything's just been cut and pasted on. You want to try to go back and reuse those colors as much as you can for that sense of unity. Otherwise, it could be quite discordant and you might not know what's going on. Now here I'm using those Dramasticks. I found that I could sharpen them up to a nice point. Again, they do wear down kind of quickly because they're super soft. They're like an oil pastel, like a really fine tipped oil pastel. Now, this is a criticism that I have of this particular product. I think the product is high quality and beautiful and well made. My criticism is that they're a plastic cased pencil and you have to sharpen the plastic. And so you're going to be throwing away microplastics essentially. So I kind of wish they were a wood cased product so they would be biodegradable, but you know, I thought I would mention it just because for me, I try to look for products that are a little bit more sustainable. Maybe there's a reason they did the plastic because it protects the medium a little bit more, but I would definitely have preferred something that would biodegrade, but that's me. We're all different people. This is probably one of my picks of the litter too, as far as products from this collection that I would recommend. This is the License to Quill pen. It looks weird because it looks like a feather quill kind of, and it's gold, so it's very glam and beautiful. The tip on it is really fine. It's comfortable to hold, surprisingly, and it's about $12.99. So obviously you can use a coupon with it if you're buying it at a Michael's store. And I don't know how long it's going to last, but I have had other people say they pick up a new one every time they go in because they never want to be without it. I hope that doesn't mean that it uses up really quick. It does seem to be the same tip that's in the other pens that they sell. I don't know if there's less ink in the other ones, but the other ones are only $8.99. And I'm not sure if I used one of those in this set, but the ink is waterproof in either way, in either pen. It's just the skinny one is cheaper. But that was very comfortable to hold. If you have any arthritis or any other grip or strength issues, you may find that pen is a little bit easier for you to manipulate. Now, the thing I like about these Dramasticks, because I talked about what I didn't like, the plastic packaging, the thing I do like about them is that they layer on top of everything. They're sticking on top of pastel, they're sticking on top of paint, they're sticking on top of powder, they're sticking on top of ColorSticks, which are kind of oily. Because they're such a soft medium, they just grab on everything, and I think that's very useful, especially if you are an oil pastel artist and you wish that you had something that was a little easier to get a fine point on, because typically oil pastels are kind of chunky and difficult to get a nice fine tip. And it's really easy to go in here and add a little highlight with this and then smudge it with your fingers because it's so soft. However, I do notice that once you leave it, either the oil absorbs into the paper or something. Maybe it absorbs into your fingers when you're smudging it, I don't know, but it doesn't leave a greasy like sheen on the paper, which is also kind of nice. I was surprised at how matte everything looked when I was done. I decided that I needed to give her a little more context, so I put a kind of strap across her chest, like a quiver, to hold her quiver of arrows, and I decided I would put some just like lines with feathers on the ends to symbolize some, like she has a bow and arrow. And I used the ColorSticks again to color with them, because they are the License to Quill pen and the ColorSticks are my pick of the litter for this collection. Really thought they were fantastic. Even though the ColorSticks have a plastic casing on them. I feel like there's a lot of medium in there, and you're not going to wear it down so quickly. And the packaging, even when you've used it up, I feel like you can reuse it. So, you know, so I'm probably way pickier than anybody else, but I think it's important to keep in mind these things as we're going. And I really liked using the velvet pastels over the ColorSticks here for a little bit of highlight on the purple. They do stick on top of the ColorSticks. I was really impressed. I didn't know if it would bead up and not stick because it's like a juicy medium over a greasy medium, but it all worked really well. Now, something else I wanted to mention, you can see the tape, how I taped down my paper so the edges would be nice and crisp. You could reuse that masking tape as a washi tape if you have like pretty colors on it like that. But I've got another tip for the tape that I'm going to show you in a little bit, so make sure you stick around for that. And I'm just building up layers. I'm really digging the way that her face is looking. She's got that confidence. She doesn't look angry, but she looks confident, and that's really the look that I was going for with this. You could really gild the lily and add all sorts of little shimmers and sparkles and highlights and what have you. And this is kind of the funnest part of the whole process, I think, putting on those little finishing details. And it can be a little like nerve-wracking. Like I wasn't sure if I was going to put those feathers in her, put like a quiver and feathers, arrows on her, because I was afraid I was messing it up. But then I'm like, you know what? If you're afraid you're going to mess it up, then do it, because that's where you grow. You're either going to learn, you're either going to succeed, or you're going to learn. There is no failure in your art journal. I think sometimes I'll look at like the stack of paintings that I've done, and I'll be like, I have nothing to do with these. I have a hard time selling my work. Not that I have a hard time parting with it. I just can't find anyone that wants to buy it, quite frankly. So when I have all like these paintings that are sitting matted ready to sell, and I've got like boxes and bags of cards that are all done and ready to sell, and I've got all this inventory, it makes me feel like I don't want to make anything, because what the world doesn't need any more of this. I say, Lindsay, why are you making more of this? But if I'm working in my art journal, I feel so much better, because then I can have this whole journal full of work that I can flip through and feel accomplished. And I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm not doing it with the intention of selling it or the intention of it being anything else. So it's very satisfying to flip through a sketchbook or an art journal that has been completed, because I've never set the expectation up on that art that is going to be sold and it is going to, go out into the world. It's for me. And I think that's really important, especially if we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves as artists to be productive and, make a living from our work. It's okay just to create art for fun and enjoy it ourselves. And here you can see it all done. I love the white border. I think it looks really crisp, and I like these pages in this book, this Grumbacher acrylic painting pad, because you can pop them back in and take them out, so you don't have to worry about messing up the rest of the book if you're going to do a really juicy, inky technique, and it just pops right back in, easy as pie, and the paper is just really wonderful. So here's the tip with the tape. I took the tape and I pressed it down onto my mat where I had been squeezing out my acrylic paint and gouache and scribbling stuff, and look at that, it picked up almost all of it, and the rest I was able to just use a wet paper towel and wipe up. So it's a really great tip, so you don't just waste that tape and throw it away. You're actually giving it another use. Of course, another great tip is saving the tape, maybe stamping over those beautiful colors that you put on there and using it on a card or scrapbook page or an art journal page. So there's a lot of things you can do here. I hope you enjoyed this project today. It was so much fun to make. I really feel this great sense of liberation since I did that. I told you guys I wasn't going to do the Friday weekly live streams anymore, and I just felt like after I recorded that video and I put it out to you guys and I read those comments of support, I was just like, yeah, now I just want to make fun art and just play and not put this pressure on myself. And I think an art journal can really be that playground of creativity that we all need. So now that I have just been, rambling about that, I guess it's time for me to say adios. I will link up any products I can in the video description. Like I mentioned, a lot of them are available at Michael's, and hopefully you can find them if you want them. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.